Range is perhaps the most important place to begin on your bird identification journey. After all, emperor penguins don't live in the Sahara Desert, toko toucans don't live in the Himalayas, and laughing kookaburras don't live in the Great Smoky Mountains. Range doesn't just follow the pattern of continents and countries. You can have birds in one part of a country, but not in another. For example, northern cardinals are most often seen in the eastern part of the United States of America, whereas mountain bluebirds are more often seen in the western part. Birds such as the eastern towhee and spotted towhee that were once considered the same species under the name rufous-sided towhee are now split, and their range is one of the differences. Eastern towhees are quite obviously the eastern species, while spotted towhees are the western species. Specific regions aren't the only consideration when looking at range. The season can change a bird's range, hence the term migratory. Take North America's smallest hummingbird, the calliope hummingbird, for example. It summers in the USA, but winters in southern Mexico. Common redpolls, on the other hand, summer in the Arctic, but winter as far south as Kansas. Despite range being helpful, it's necessary to compare with all the other techniques, as birds can sometimes show up outside of their normal range. These are known as vagrants. One of the recent famous vagrants was a Steller sea eagle that showed up in North America. Steller sea eagles are native to far eastern Russia, the Korean peninsula, and northern Japan. There are only about 4,000 of them left in the wild. Believed to be the same eagle, it first showed up in Alaska, moved on to Texas, then to eastern Canada, and then to New England. Birds even within the same country can end up outside of their range as well. For example, the beautifully designed scissor-tailed flycatcher winters in Central America and breeds in the south-central United States, but is known to wander widely and can show up pretty much anywhere in the US and Canada. Just this year, 2022, one was reported as far north as Saskatchewan, Canada. Another thing to take into consideration are eruption years. Eruption is when birds intentionally travel outside their normal range. This happens as a consequence of food availability. If northern spruce, pine, birch, and other tree species have large crops of seeds, there's no need for the seed-eating birds to leave the boreal forest. If the cone crops are poor, these birds may head south in search of food. However, seed-eating birds aren't the only species to erupt. The snowy owl, currently in the stage before endangered, otherwise known as vulnerable, erupts for a similar yet slightly different reason. Many people assume that hunger has driven these owls south, but it is not hunger that usually produces the eruption. It is actually due to an abundance of food during breeding season. High populations of lemmings, voles, ptarmigan, and other prey lead to owls laying large clutches of eggs. This leads to many owls, and when winter comes, the snow hides the lemmings. It takes much skill to catch the hidden animals, and only so many owls can be supported by the number of prey available in the Arctic over the winter. This forces many young snowy owls to leave the area, spreading out to search for winter hunting opportunities. Understanding habitat is also very useful. Was the bird in the desert, on a lake, in a marsh, on a river, high in the mountains, in a forest, on the ocean, or in a meadow? While birds can be found outside of their usual habitat, especially during migration, generally there is a specific habitat they prefer. Hummingbirds prefer open woodlands, while songbirds can be found in just about every habitat. Woodpeckers prefer open woodlands and forests, while shorebirds prefer marshes and shorelines. Wading birds prefer marshes or swamps, while seabirds obviously prefer oceans. Swimming birds, such as ducks, prefer lakes and ponds, marshes and oceans, while chicken-like birds prefer grasslands, forests, scrub, and for some, tundra. Finally, raptors prefer grasslands, forest, and scrub, and owls prefer grasslands and forest. It's important to take note that range and habitat are not fully reliable on their own, and so to correctly identify birds, you must use the other techniques you'll learn in this 5-part series.